Millionaire sneaks out to see Mistress at night. Pregnant wife leaves with their child on the spot. Have you ever wondered what secrets lurk behind the walls of a perfect mansion? Meet Andrew Kensington, a charismatic millionaire who appears to have it all: a thriving business empire, a sprawling estate nestled in the prestigious Bel Air neighborhood, and a beautiful wife, Samantha, who's expecting their second child. But beneath the veneer of luxury and marital bliss lies a heart-wrenching betrayal. Night after night, Andrew slips out under the cover of darkness, leaving Samantha distraught and suspicious. And in a single, explosive confrontation, her worst fears come true. Stay tuned to discover the scandalous twists of this gripping family drama. Andrew Kensington was a name that frequently splashed across financial magazines and business news networks. At just 37 years old, he had become the CEO of an expansive real estate and tech conglomerate, Kensington Enterprises. Everyone who met Andrew for the first time found him magnetic, tall, broad-shouldered, with a practiced confidence that made one feel that anything was possible if he was at the helm. Yet for all his public glory, Andrew was at heart a complicated man. He was married to Samantha Kensington, formerly Samantha Wilcox, who had been his college sweetheart. Samantha, 35, was in many ways Andrew's complete opposite. While Andrew possessed that larger-than-life aura, Samantha was gentle and modest, preferring quiet nights with family over posh galas. Their marriage had all the makings of a timeless love story. Two bright students from the University of Southern California, bonding over study sessions, Sunday brunches, and volunteer work at a local animal shelter. Andrew's ambition propelled him through the ranks, eventually bringing him wealth beyond his wildest imaginings. Samantha, meanwhile, chose to pursue a career in early childhood education before becoming a stay-at-home mother after the birth of their daughter, Lily. Their daughter was now 4 years old, a lively child with Andrew's mischievous grin and Samantha's soulful eyes. Lily was the light of the Kensington household, a wide-eyed little girl with curly dark hair who brought sparkles of joy to every corner of the mansion. Samantha loved being a mum, and at 6 months pregnant with her second child, she was thrilled to give Lily a sibling. Everything about Samantha's life seemed golden: a massive home in Bel Air, doting grandparents on both sides, an affectionate sister named Elena Garcia, who visited often, and a circle of friends that grew wider each year. Yet, anyone paying close attention might have noticed subtle cracks forming in the glittery surface of her life. Andrew was often away on business trips, leaving Samantha alone in that sprawling mansion. The staff housekeepers, a nanny, and a driver took care of Samantha's everyday needs, but they could never fill the emotional space Andrew vacated. Samantha grew used to lonely dinners in a dining hall fit for 20. Nights often turned into restless, anxious hours waiting for Andrew's text messages confirming he'd landed safely or that he had a late conference call. One evening, Samantha began feeling twinges of doubt. She recalled the way Andrew used to look at her like she was his entire world. Now, though, something about his eyes had changed. They had grown distant, as though part of him was perpetually elsewhere. Even Lily's excited shrieks of "Daddy's home" did not light the same spark in him. Samantha tried to banish her suspicions. Life could be stressful for a man controlling a multi-billion-dollar empire, she told herself. Stress did that to people. Still, every so often, Samantha would find strange receipts in Andrew's pockets from restaurants they never visited together, or see cryptic text messages flash on his phone. This gnawed at her heart. She once confronted him gently. "Is everything okay at work? You've been tense," she'd say, stroking his shoulder. Andrew always brushed it off as the typical concerns of a busy executive. When Andrew received a phone call one night and, moments later, claimed an emergency meeting had popped up at midnight. Samantha's heart pounded. A midnight meeting in downtown Los Angeles, so urgent he had to leave at once? She felt her stomach churn as she watched him go. The staff pretended not to notice anything amiss, though Samantha was aware of hushed whispers whenever Andrew set off on these nocturnal escapes. She saw the sympathetic, pitiful looks in the maid's eyes. Something wasn't right, and in her gut, Samantha could feel a storm brewing. She never imagined, however, just how violent that storm would be, one that would tear apart her illusions of a perfect marriage and launch her into a world of heartbreak, betrayal, and resilience she never thought possible. Samantha woke the next morning with a heavy heart. Sleep had eluded her after Andrew's late-night departure. She tossed and turned, feeling a smouldering ache in her chest, but she told herself she needed proof before making any assumptions. After sending Lily off to preschool, Samantha ventured down to the breakfast room. The staff, too polite to show open concern, maintained their usual deference. Andrew, for his part, was not at the table. He rarely was anymore, especially on nights he worked late. Samantha forced a slice of toast down, her stomach rebelling with morning sickness and anxiety. The pregnancy felt more daunting than ever, physically draining, with her back aching, her feet swelling, and her hormones making her more sensitive to every shift in Andrew's behavior. That day, Samantha decided to visit her sister, Elena Garcia, who lived just a short drive away. Elena was a pragmatic soul, the type who faced problems head-on with unwavering courage. After Samantha's chauffeur dropped her off at Elena's modest but cozy home, she felt her shoulders relax a fraction. Elena's place was a far cry from the Kensington mansion, no grand fountains or acres of manicured lawns, but it had warmth and a sense of genuine comfort. The sisters settled on a cream-colored sofa, with Elena's cat, Biscuit, perched on top of the couch, tail twitching as though he sensed Samantha's tension. "Spill it, Sam," Elena said as she offered her a glass of water. "You look pale." Samantha tried to steady her voice, but the words came tumbling out. She told Elena about Andrew's frequent absences, the midnight phone call, the suspicious receipts. Though she had no concrete proof, every fiber of her being screamed that Andrew was up to something beyond ordinary business concerns. Elena listened, her expression grave. "Have you asked him directly?" she asked, flipping her straight black hair behind her shoulder. Samantha sighed, feeling tears prick at her eyes. "Yes, he always says it's work-related, or that I'm imagining things. And maybe I am. Maybe I'm just hormonal, but something isn't right." Elena tapped her chin thoughtfully. "You're not crazy or paranoid. You're pregnant and sensitive to the shifts in your environment. Andrew's changed, Sam. I've seen it in the way he barely talks at family gatherings. He's always checking his phone. You're telling me you found receipts that don't make sense. You know him best, trust your instincts." Although this conversation lifted some weight off Samantha's heart, just having someone believe her the sense of dread lingered. That very night, Andrew came home close to 2 a.m. with no explanation other than long negotiations with an important international client. He stripped off his tailored suit and fell into bed, not noticing that Samantha was wide awake, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. A few nights later, Samantha's suspicions solidified. She woke in the middle of the night to a dull hum, only to see Andrew slipping out of the bedroom door. The corridor lights were off, and outside, in the silver glow of the moon, she watched from the window as Andrew climbed into the driver's seat of his midnight blue Maserati, speeding off without so much as a backward glance. That brazen departure cut into Samantha's soul like a blade. She didn't even attempt to sleep again, her mind spinning, conjuring up the worst of possibilities. In the morning, she resolved to act. Samantha called a personal contact, James Carter, a private investigator known to Elena through a mutual friend. James had helped Elena once, when she had a former landlord refusing to return her security deposit, and he came highly recommended for discretion and thoroughness. Samantha never thought she'd stoop to hiring a detective to watch her husband, but desperation overrode her pride. When James arrived, Samantha asked for absolute secrecy. She gave him the dates and times Andrew usually left the house, and handed over photographs of Andrew's Maserati and the addresses of all his offices. James, a stocky man with kind eyes, listened carefully and asked questions that made Samantha's pulse accelerate. How often does he leave at night? Are there any particular patterns you've noticed? Does he have a personal assistant who could be covering for him? James inquired, scribbling notes in a small leather-bound notebook. Samantha answered as best she could. When he was satisfied, James promised to begin surveillance immediately. "I understand the sensitivity of this situation," he said, voice steady. "And I promise you whatever is happening, you'll get the truth." That night, Samantha paced the floor of her bedroom, waiting for Andrew to return. To her surprise, he came home at a reasonable hour. He offered no explanations, no apologies, just a weary yawn. Samantha tried to read his expression, searching for any sign of guilt or regret, but his face was as inscrutable as polished stone. She found it chilling that he could be so calm. The next morning, a series of texts from James appeared on her phone. Each text carried an electric jolt of fear and inevitability. "I have something," one read. "Need more time to confirm," stated another. Samantha could barely breathe, let alone eat or focus on her prenatal care. All she could do was wait for the day James would present her with the evidence that would shatter her marriage. Within a week, James Carter gathered enough intel to shake Samantha's already fragile world. The private investigator requested a meeting at a discreet cafe in West Hollywood. Samantha, anxious to avoid any run-ins with people who knew them, wore sunglasses and a simple navy blue dress that concealed her growing baby bump. When she slipped into a corner booth, James was waiting, his face somber. "I'm sorry to have to do this," he began, placing a thick folder on the table. "But it looks like your suspicions were correct." Samantha could hardly speak as she opened the folder. Inside were photos of Andrew in restaurants, at a luxury condominium complex, and most heartbreakingly, kissing a woman with long chestnut brown hair. The woman appeared younger than Samantha by a few years. She was tall and elegant, with an immaculate sense of style. Her name, James revealed, was Victoria McNeil. She was a marketing executive for one of Andrew's subsidiaries, a budding influencer often photographed at swanky events. Samantha could only stare, tears threatening to spill. Where were these taken?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. James pointed at the pictures. "That's a lounge in Beverly Hills. And this one here is the driveway of a condo in Century City. From my observations, Andrews visited her place 4 times this week, always after midnight. He stays for a few hours and then leaves around dawn." Samantha's stomach churned. Her eyes lingered on a particular image of Andrew holding Victoria's hand as they walked into what looked like a chic rooftop bar. He was smiling in a way Samantha hadn't seen in a long time, relaxed, even joyful. The pain was immediate and visceral. "I can get more details if you want," James offered gently. "But from a professional standpoint, you have more than enough evidence." "I'm sorry." Her throat felt parched. "No, thank you. This is enough." Driving home, Samantha wrestled with conflicting emotions, betrayal, heartbreak, anger, and a strange, numb acceptance that all of this was, in fact, real. It was as though she had stepped outside of her own life and was peering in from a distance, powerless to change what she saw. That evening, Andrew returned from another business meeting. Samantha confronted him in the living room, the photos scattered across the marble coffee table. He froze in the doorway, color draining from his face. Time seemed to stand still in that moment. Lily's laughter echoed from the upstairs nursery, a gentle reminder of the life that was about to be torn apart by the reality of these images. "How long?" Samantha asked, her eyes brimming with tears. She could barely keep her voice steady. Andrew's gaze darted around, seeking a lie, an escape, some rationalization. Finally, he released a tremulous sigh. "A few months," he admitted. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." Samantha's voice cracked. "A few months? How long have you been lying to me? Sneaking out at night? Does she know I'm pregnant?" Andrew ran a hand through his hair, unable to meet Samantha's eyes. "She knows," he mumbled. "It's complicated, Sam. I was under so much stress. I never wanted to hurt you. Never wanted to hurt me," Samantha said, her tone sharper than she'd ever heard it. "You lied to me for months. You've been with another woman while I'm here carrying your child, Andrew." She expected Andrew to fall to his knees, to plead for her forgiveness, to swear this was a mistake. Instead, he offered a series of half-hearted excuses: stress, midlife crisis, a search for excitement he felt he had lost in their relationship. Each word was like salt in a gaping wound. Samantha's breaths grew ragged. She placed a hand on her belly as though to shield her unborn child from the ugliness unfolding. "Get out," she whispered. Andrew looked stunned, as though he hadn't anticipated her anger. "Samantha, let's talk about this. Let's figure it out," she laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Talk about what? You sneaking out in the middle of the night to be with her? This entire pregnancy I've been suffering alone while you've been having the time of your life, from the looks of it. Go to her if that's where you want to be. I'm done." And so Andrew left, though he didn't go far, only out to the guest house in the estate's expansive grounds. His pride wouldn't allow him to leave the property he believed was rightfully his. But for Samantha, that night was the beginning of the end. The illusions were gone, and there was no more pretending that Andrew might simply be overworked. The mistress had a name, Victoria McNeil, and a face. Her husband had a secret life. Samantha spent the next few days in a haze. Andrew was still on the property, albeit confined to the guest house, and Lily was the only reason Samantha maintained any semblance of composure. Their daughter was too young to understand why Daddy was suddenly sleeping somewhere else, but she sensed the tension. She asked questions with all the innocent curiosity of a child. "Did Daddy do something bad? Why don't you eat breakfast together anymore?" Samantha's heart shattered each time she had to force a smile and divert Lily's questions with, "We're just giving Daddy some space, sweetheart." In the daytime, Samantha busied herself with prenatal checkups, meeting Elena for lunch, and sorting through some philanthropic obligations she had committed to months before. At night, she cried silently in her room, replaying the last few months of her life like a broken record. She longed for the days when Andrew would sweep her into his arms after returning from a business trip and regale her with exciting stories of corporate deals he'd sealed in Hong Kong or Tokyo. She missed the moments of spontaneous affection, the weekend getaways to Napa Valley, the quiet evenings they used to spend watching old black and white movies. Now, every time she saw him pass through the corridors of the main house to greet Lily, or make a phone call in the study, her chest tightened. Andrew seemed reluctant to pack his things and leave entirely, as if staying in the guest house preserved some modicum of control over his marriage and family. Samantha began to realize that Andrew was no longer the man she married. He was protective of his reputation above all else. She suspected that to him, admitting to family and friends that his marriage was collapsing would be a blow to his image. Perhaps he also genuinely felt guilty for hurting her, but not guilty enough to let go of Victoria. One afternoon, as Samantha was reading in the sunroom with Lily, she overheard Andrew's voice from the hallway. He was on a phone call. She tensed, listening for the mention of Victoria. Instead, she heard him discussing a new acquisition deal with someone named Richard Thompson, one of his key business partners. The tone of Andrew's voice carried a tension Samantha recognized he was feeling cornered, not just in his personal life, but also in his professional dealings. Lily, unaware of the adult drama swirling around her, continued to color on a sketch pad. Samantha wondered if it would be best for Lily to take her somewhere else, away from this suffocating environment. 2 days later, Andrew cornered Samantha in the living room, looking oddly hesitant. The pride in his eyes dimmed. "Sam," he began, "I think we need to talk about how to move forward." Samantha folded her arms protectively. "Move forward? I asked you to leave." Andrew frowned, frustration flashing across his face. "Look, I can't just leave everything. I have responsibilities here, my daughter, our unborn child, and the business that's run from this property. I still love you, Sam. Believe it or not, I do." She resisted the urge to scoff. "You love me so much, you were willing to sneak around with another woman." His eyes flickered. "I am confused." Victoria she is a distraction, an escape, but it's not that simple. Samantha closed her eyes, pinching the bridge of her nose. She could feel her baby moving inside her, a tiny reminder that life was still forging ahead, no matter how broken she felt. "Well, it's simple to me," she managed. "You made a choice. You betrayed me. You think I'm going to just stay here, pregnant and humiliated, so you can have your cake and eat it too? I may have once been that naive, but I'm done." Andrew took a step closer, his voice trembling slightly. "I want to be involved with the baby. And Lily. I don't want to lose my children." Samantha's eyes welled up. For a moment, she saw a flicker of sincerity in his gaze, a glimpse of the Andrew she used to know. "I won't deny you your children," she whispered, "but you've already lost me." The conversation ended there, abruptly, painfully. Andrew returned to the guest house, and Samantha was left alone in the mansion that now felt like a prison. She knew the staff whispered about the tensions, that they darted sorrowful glances at her as she passed. She began packing small items, not quite sure if she was ready to leave, but needing some sense of control. As she folded Lily's clothes and her own maternity wear, she told herself that she needed a plan, a real plan, to escape this toxic environment. News of Andrew's affair eventually reached the ears of their families and close friends. Perhaps the staff had let something slip, or maybe Elena had confided in a friend who confided in another friend, and so on. Before Samantha could contain the damage, her parents, Robert and Carol Wilcox, arrived from San Diego, visibly distraught. Robert was a retired police officer, fiercely protective of his daughters. He nearly pounded on Andrew's door in the guest house, demanding an explanation. Samantha had to intervene to keep her father from escalating the situation. Carol, on the other hand, spent hours by Samantha's side, stroking her hair as she wept. Meanwhile, Andrew's own parents, Nicholas and Penelope Kensington, were outraged at the scandal threatening to tarnish the Kensington name. Though Nicholas was known to be a staunch traditionalist and stern father, he condemned Andrew's infidelity. Penelope tried to broker a reconciliation, her pleas delivered in a voice quaking with suppressed fury. For the Kensingtons, the facade of perfection mattered above all, and Andrew's affair with an employee was the worst kind of public relations nightmare. In the midst of these familial confrontations, Victoria McNeil made her presence known in the media. A few paparazzi photos surfaced online, capturing Andrew and Victoria in Beverly Hills, further fueling rumors of his extramarital escapades. Samantha shuddered each time she saw Victoria's name or face on social media, often accompanied by lurid gossip columns speculating about Andrew's loyalty to his wife. The headlines were as sensational as they were cruel. Is Andrew Kensington trading in his marriage for a younger flame, or pregnant wife left alone? The Kensington scandal deepens. What cut Samantha deepest, though, was Andrew's lukewarm defense of her. The press releases from Kensington Enterprises simply stated, "We do not comment on personal matters," while Andrew's own social media remained carefully curated photos of corporate events and philanthropic initiatives, nothing indicating the chaos at home. Samantha's only solace came from Lily, who remained blissfully unaware of the complexities and cruelty of adult life. Every night, as Samantha tucked Lily into bed, she read her a fairy tale or sang a lullaby, hoping to preserve this fleeting innocence for as long as possible. But the stifling tension was taking its toll on Samantha's health. At her next prenatal checkup, her doctor expressed concern about elevated blood pressure and advised her to minimize stress. "You need to rest, Mrs. Kensington," Dr. Patel said kindly, adjusting the stethoscope around her neck. "Stress can lead to complications." Samantha forced a smile. She wanted to laugh at the absurdity of the advice. How could she possibly rest when her world was caving in? Returning home from the clinic, she found Andrew pacing in the foyer, a scowl etched on his handsome features. "We need to talk," he said tersely. "I'm not in the mood to hear your excuses," Samantha replied, sidestepping him. Andrew placed a hand on her arm, a touch that made her skin prickle with conflicting feelings. "It's about the board of Kensington Enterprises. They're worried this scandal will harm our image. They want me to address the rumors publicly." Samantha fixed him with a sharp gaze. "So, now you care about how this looks to everyone else? You didn't care when you started sneaking out to see Victoria, but you care now that your precious empire is threatened." He exhaled, frustration evident. "You think I'm proud of what I've done? I made a mistake, Samantha interjected. "Sneaking out, night after night, hooking up with the same woman for months, that's not a mistake. That's a choice." He opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. Samantha brushed past him, heading for the stairs. She felt an intense wave of dizziness, her blood pressure surging. Clinging to the banister, she willed her heart to calm down. Stress was the last thing she needed right now. As the days dragged on, the standoff continued. Andrew remained on the property, while Samantha holed up in her bedroom, trying to shield Lily from the drama. The tension boiled over when one night Samantha heard Andrew's voice rising from the living room. She crept out to investigate and found him arguing with Victoria on the phone. The fury in his tone took her by surprise. "I told you this is complicated," he shouted, pacing back and forth. "I can't just announce our relationship to the world, especially not now. My family, my wife, is in turmoil." A cold realization dawned on Samantha. Andrew was torn between preserving his carefully crafted public image, trying to keep the mother of his children from leaving, and placating Victoria, whose ambitions were evidently overshadowing her discretion. Samantha let out a bitter laugh. The man she once believed was her rock had become a stranger, trapped in a web of his own making. She moved quietly away from the living room and into Lily's bedroom, where her daughter was fast asleep, dreaming peacefully. That night, as she watched her child's serene face, Samantha resolved that she had reached her limit. Her baby was due in a few months, and she refused to bring another life into this oppressive environment. She would leave, with or without Andrew's blessing. The moment had arrived to protect herself and her children. Early the next morning, Samantha woke with a sense of grim determination. She placed calls to her parents and her sister, explaining that she intended to leave Andrew, at least for a while, and needed somewhere stable to stay. Elena immediately offered her home, but Samantha was concerned that her sister's two-bedroom bungalow might be cramped with a newborn on the way. Her parents, on the other hand, had a larger residence in San Diego, enough space for Samantha and her children to find sanctuary until she decided her next steps. Samantha gathered documents, her marriage certificate, Lily's birth certificate, her medical records, and enough clothes for her and Lily to last a few weeks. She also took out a small suitcase of baby items she had been collecting in anticipation of the new arrival tiny onesies, soft blankets, a few plush toys. The act of packing these innocent objects for a child who was about to be born into such turmoil wrenched her heart. To her surprise, Andrew was not in the guest house that morning. A staff member informed her he had left early for an urgent meeting. Samantha suppressed a mirthless laugh. Andrew probably had no idea that his wife was about to walk out for good. Perhaps he had gone to Victoria's condo, or maybe he truly had a business emergency. Either way, Samantha didn't care. By mid-afternoon, Samantha's plan was in place. She and Lily would travel to San Diego with Elena, who had driven over as soon as she received Samantha's call. Just as they were loading suitcases into Elena's car, Andrew's sleek Maserati pulled up. He jumped out, alarm flashing across his face at the sight of his wife and daughter preparing to depart. "What's going on?" he demanded, rushing to intercept her. "Where are you taking Lily?" Samantha motioned for Lily to get in the car first, not wanting her daughter to witness the ugliness of this confrontation. Then she squared her shoulders and locked eyes with Andrew. "I'm leaving," she stated, each syllable resonating with finality. "I need space. I can't do this anymore, Andrew." Panic flickered in his gaze. "You can't just take my daughter away from me. We need to talk about custody, about living arrangements." She shook her head. "We're not talking about anything until I'm in a place where I'm not drowning in heartbreak. You can talk to my lawyer if you want. But for now, Lily and I are gone." She placed a hand protectively over her belly. "And this baby comes with me." Andrew stepped closer, forcing her to look into those eyes that once held love for her. "Samantha, I know I've been an idiot. I'm trying to figure things out. Don't do anything rash." "Rash?" She almost laughed. "This is months, maybe years of betrayal, Andrew. Months of secrets, lies, and late-night rendezvous. I gave you my heart, my trust, and you spat on it. I don't care about your confusion anymore. I care about my children's well-being." He struggled to find the right words, and for a second, Samantha thought she saw tears glistening in his eyes. But the memory of him kissing Victoria outside that condo flashed in her mind, and her resolve hardened. Andrew reached out to hold her hand, but she pulled away. "Let's be civil for Lily's sake," she said softly, "but I will not be disrespected. I need time to heal and decide how to move forward." With that, she climbed into the passenger seat next to Elena. Andrew stood frozen, hands balled into fists at his sides. Samantha refused to look back at him as they drove off, focusing instead on Lily's cherubic face in the rearview mirror. The little girl was humming a nursery rhyme, oblivious to the life-altering decision her mother had just made. Samantha's heart pounded with a mix of fear, sorrow, and a sliver of relief. She was stepping into the unknown, severing ties with the life she had painstakingly built with Andrew. But she was also freeing herself from the shackles of betrayal. In that moment, she promised herself she would do whatever it took to protect her children, even if it meant starting over completely. Arriving at her parents' home in San Diego felt like entering another world. The house was a cozy, single-story suburban dwelling with a well-tended garden. Robert and Carol Wilcox welcomed Samantha with open arms, ushering her into the guest bedroom they had prepared. Lily squealed in delight at the sight of a basket filled with toys and coloring books laid out by her grandparents, a thoughtful effort to make her feel at home. Despite her parents' warm hospitality, Samantha felt a surge of conflicting emotions the moment she unpacked her suitcases. She sank onto the bed, pressing a hand to her belly and fighting the urge to cry. She was grateful to have a safe place, but also suffused with an overwhelming sense of failure. This wasn't the life she had envisioned, married to a successful man, raising her children in a mansion, only to end up back in her childhood home, heartbroken and adrift. Elena, seeing Samantha's distress, gently closed the bedroom door behind them. "Hey," she said, sitting beside her sister. "You're not alone, Sam. Mum and Dad have your back. I have your back. And you're doing the right thing for Lily and the baby." Samantha nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. I just never thought I'd be in this position. Andrew and I built a life together. Part of me still can't believe I left. Elena placed a comforting hand on Samantha's shoulder. You had to. You weren't safe there emotionally, psychologically. And the baby needs a stress-free environment. That afternoon, Samantha spoke privately with her father. Robert, with his gruff exterior, tried to keep his anger at Andrew in check. He offered something Samantha did not expect: legal advice. I have a friend, Mark Bennett, Robert said in a calm, measured tone. He's a family law attorney here in San Diego. He'll help you figure out custody, financial support, everything. Samantha's head spun. She had never considered how complicated a potential separation or divorce could be. Andrew might fight me, she said softly, not because he wants me, but because he won't let his public image take a blow. He'll try to spin it, or he might just try to overshadow me with expensive lawyers. Her father's jaw tightened. Then we'll be ready. You're our daughter. I'll do everything in my power to protect you. With her parents' encouragement, Samantha contacted Mark Bennett, arranging a preliminary consultation. Over the phone, Mark provided her with a list of documents she'd need for a possible custody and divorce case: financial records, bank statements, property deeds, prenuptial agreements, if any. Samantha realized she barely knew the full extent of Andrew's holdings. The man had wealth tied up in numerous corporate entities. The task of unraveling the finances felt daunting, but Samantha pressed forward. She had no choice now. Meanwhile, Lily adjusted surprisingly well to her new environment. Perhaps it was the novelty of living with grandparents who doted on her, or maybe the innocence of youth made transitions easier. Every night, Lily insisted Samantha read from the same picture book, Goodnight Moon, just as they used to in Bel Air. The routine was a comforting reminder that some parts of their life remained intact. As the days turned into a week, Andrew's calls became more frequent. Samantha, with her doctor's guidance, had decided to block out stress and negativity as much as possible, but she allowed Lily to speak to her father over video calls. She watched from a distance as Lily chatted excitedly about her new bedroom and the fun she was having with Grandpa Robert. Andrew made several attempts to speak directly with Samantha, but she remained firm. She would only correspond with him through text or email about matters regarding Lily's well-being. Still, curiosity nagged at her. She felt compelled to check social media for any sign of Andrew or Victoria, but she resisted the urge, knowing it would only tear open fresh wounds. One late afternoon, Samantha received an unexpected call from an old friend, Miranda White, who worked in media relations for one of Andrew's philanthropic initiatives. "Hey, Sam," Miranda said hesitantly, "I just wanted you to know there's been some chatter about Andrew and Victoria showing up together at a black tie event last night. Photos are circulating." "I'm so sorry." Samantha swallowed, her heart clenching. She thanked Miranda for letting her know. Though she had left Andrew, hearing that he was gallivanting around with Victoria so openly still stung. She tried to focus on her new reality, preparing for the baby, ensuring Lily remained carefree, and forging a path forward with legal counsel. Yet Andrew's presence loomed like a storm cloud, threatening to pour down at any moment. 2 weeks after arriving in San Diego, Samantha met Mark Bennett in person. He was a tall, soft-spoken man who radiated competence and empathy. They sat in his tastefully decorated office, a shelf of law books looming behind him. Samantha clutched a folder containing the documents she managed to bring from the mansion. Given the evidence of infidelity, Mark began scanning through the folder. You could file for divorce on grounds of adultery. But California is a no-fault divorce state, so the affair won't necessarily grant you a better settlement on that basis alone. though it might influence spousal support and custody considerations, especially if Andrew's behavior impacts the kid's well-being. Samantha nodded, feeling a wave of nerves. Andrew's a millionaire, possibly a billionaire if you consider the entire conglomerate. I don't want to be greedy, but I need enough for Lily and the new baby's future. Mark removed his reading glasses and leaned forward. Understandable. Let's start by requesting financial disclosures. Andrew will be required by law to provide details on all his assets, income, and debts. As for custody, we'll propose a parenting plan that prioritizes your children's best interests. She inhaled deeply. He'll fight. He won't let me go easily. His pride is well. You know how it is with powerful men. Mark offered a reassuring smile. We'll handle it. In the meantime, focus on your health and the pregnancy. Let me handle the legal complexities. That evening, Samantha lay awake in bed, contemplating the enormity of her decision. She felt like she was stepping into a battlefield where Andrew would have every advantage: wealth, connections, a polished public persona. But she also knew she was doing the right thing. Her children deserved a mother who was whole, not shattered by betrayal. Andrew's reaction to the legal papers came swiftly. Within a week of filing, Samantha received a barrage of texts from him, swinging between anger and contrition. One moment he was lashing out, accusing her of overreacting, and the next he was begging for another chance. She found it increasingly difficult to navigate his emotional swings. During one video call with Lily, Andrew requested to speak to Samantha directly. She hesitated, but agreed. Andrew's face filled the screen, a mix of desperation and frustration etched into his features. "How can you drag us into court?" he demanded, voice trembling with barely contained anger. "We have a child together and another on the way. We should work this out amicably. Do you want Lily to grow up in a broken home?" Samantha's cheeks warmed with fury. "It was already broken when you decided to have an affair. I'm not the one who destroyed our marriage, Andrew. We tried talking, but you never let go of Victoria. Don't blame me for doing what I have to do." He ran a hand over his face, sighing. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The business is in a precarious position. The board is on edge about the scandal. I'm trying to keep everything from falling apart." Samantha couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped her. "And what do you think I'm doing, Andrew? I'm pregnant, alone, and trying to build a life for our children away from the chaos you created." They stared at each other through the screen, the silence crackling with unresolved tension. Finally, Andrew ended the call abruptly, leaving Samantha trembling. She had once looked at Andrew as her knight in shining armor. Now he was a man desperate to control a narrative he could no longer manage. Weeks stretched into months, and Samantha's pregnancy advanced. Each day brought new challenges: legal depositions, communication through lawyers, and the emotional toll of severing a marriage she had nurtured for nearly a decade. Yet, amid the turmoil, Samantha found unexpected sources of strength. She began reconnecting with old friends in San Diego and volunteering at a local community center that her mother frequented. Although she was heavily pregnant, she helped organize children's reading programs and basic childcare, finding solace in the laughter of kids. It reminded her of the rewarding work she once pursued as a teacher. Samantha also found support in a small prenatal yoga group. There, she met women from various walks of life, each carrying their own burdens: single mothers, working moms, older first-time mothers. These connections allowed Samantha to share her story and hear others' experiences, breaking the isolation she had felt for months. When she confided in a fellow pregnant mother named Lucy Martinez about Andrew's affair and her ongoing legal battle, Lucy squeezed her hand warmly. "You'll get through this," she said with a supportive smile. "Your baby will be stronger for having a mother who refused to be broken." Days before her due date, Samantha received a call from Mark Bennett. "Good news," he said, sounding relieved. Andrew's team sent an offer for an interim custody and support arrangement. It's not final, but it seems he's willing to cooperate, at least financially. Samantha's hand shook slightly as she held the phone. That's progress. They're suggesting joint legal custody for Lily, with you maintaining primary physical custody. Andrew wants visitation rights, which can be worked out on weekends or through scheduled visits in San Diego. He's also agreed to cover all medical costs for your pregnancy, plus child support. The final settlement will take more negotiation, but this is a positive step. Her eyes filled with tears of relief. It was far from perfect, an entire labyrinth of legalities still awaited. But at least, for now, Andrew was acknowledging his responsibilities. Samantha felt a glimmer of hope that, if nothing else, he would remain a present father to Lily and the baby. That evening, she updated her parents. Robert nodded solemnly, offering a rare smile. Even if Andrew's doing it to save face or appease his board, it's good for you and the kids. Samantha couldn't argue with that. A sense of cautious optimism settled over her, even as she braced for the emotional trials of giving birth without a husband by her side. She allowed herself a tiny spark of happiness, imagining the moment she would hold her newborn in her arms, free from the lies that had once strangled her spirit. Late one night, just a few days before her scheduled due date, Samantha's phone buzzed. It was Andrew. She hesitated, heart pounding, but picked up. "I'm in San Diego," he said, "at a hotel near your parents' place. I need to see you, please." Samantha's mind raced. "Why?" she asked, gripping the phone tighter. "I need to apologize, properly." Against her better judgment, she agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a nearby cafe that closed late. It was a short drive from her parents' house, and though she was heavily pregnant, she felt she needed this final face-to-face conversation before the baby arrived. She found Andrew already seated at a corner table, sipping a cup of coffee. He stood up quickly when she entered, offering to help her sit. Samantha refused, lowering herself carefully into a chair. For a few moments, neither spoke. She noticed that Andrew appeared thinner, dark circles shadowing his eyes. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Sam, you look ready to pop," he said awkwardly, a half smile on his lips. She pressed her lips together. "I'm due any day now," he exhaled, fiddling with his coffee mug. "Listen, I'm sorry for everything I've done. I know that sounds hollow right now, but I need you to know that I regret hurting you." Samantha's eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed. "What do you want from me, Andrew?" He swallowed. "Victoria and I are over. I ended it a few weeks ago. I realized I was using her as an escape from my problems, and it wasn't fair to anyone involved." Samantha raised an eyebrow. "And what? You want a medal? You chose her over me when it mattered." A flash of sorrow crossed his face. "I deserve that. But it's not just about guilt. I still love you, Sam. I'm sorry it took this whole mess for me to see how much I was losing." She felt a pang in her chest, a faint echo of the love she once bore him. "What you're losing," she repeated, voice shaking. "Sometimes we break things so badly they can't be fixed, Andrew. Love alone isn't enough when there's no trust." He reached across the table, hesitating before resting a hand over hers. "Samantha, I'm not expecting you to take me back, but please let me be there for you for the baby. Let me at least try to make amends." For a long moment, Samantha gazed at him, memories flashing, their wedding day under the California sun, the birth of Lily, the night spent dreaming of a future they would build together. Andrew's betrayal had tainted those memories, but it hadn't completely erased them. She withdrew her hand gently. "I'm glad you're taking responsibility," she said, "but I'm not ready to forgive you. I don't know if I ever will. What I do know is that our children deserve a father who's present and honest. For their sake, I'm willing to work out a civil arrangement." Andrew nodded, tears shining in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. They parted ways that night with a subdued understanding that their relationship had irrevocably changed. 2 days later, Samantha went into labor in the early morning hours. She rushed to the hospital with her parents at her side, contractions gripping her body in waves of pain. The staff prepped her room, and her sister Elena arrived soon after, offering comforting words and a steady presence. In the throes of labor, Samantha clutched Elena's hand, beads of sweat rolling down her forehead. She cried out as each contraction hit, the physical pain mingling with the emotional intensity of this pivotal moment. After hours of labor, Samantha gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The flood of relief and love that filled her was overwhelming. In that instant, her heartbreak took a backseat to the fierce protection and devotion she felt for this tiny new life. Word reached Andrew, who burst into the hospital, breathless and disheveled, shortly after the baby was born. Samantha was exhausted, still in the delivery room, cradling her newborn. When Andrew entered quietly, he paused at the threshold, tears once again brimming in his eyes. Samantha studied his expression, seeing a raw vulnerability she hadn't seen in years. With a tentative nod, she allowed Andrew to step closer. He approached the bedside and gazed at his son, awe and regret washing over his face. Carefully, she let him hold the baby for a moment. In that silent, fragile truce, both parents acknowledged the new life they had created, the bond that would forever tie them, even if their marriage had fractured beyond repair. Samantha took a trembling breath. She didn't know what the future held, whether they would finalize the divorce or if Andrew would truly change. But for now, she focused on what mattered most, the health of her children and her own newfound resolve. She had walked away from a mansion and a lifestyle many dreamed of, but she had also escaped a web of lies. And in her arms, she held a reason to believe that better days lay ahead. Thank you for joining us on this emotional roller coaster of love, betrayal, and resilience. Samantha's journey proves that even in the face of heartbreak, a person can find the strength to stand up for themselves and protect what truly matters: family, self-worth, and emotional well-being. We witnessed how one woman reclaimed her independence, seeking shelter with loved ones and rebuilding her life while preparing to welcome a new child. Andrew's actions serve as a reminder that trust, once broken, is difficult to mend. Yet, in the darkest moments, there can still be glimpses of redemption and hope for change. If you found Samantha's story gripping and inspiring, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful tales of resilience, courage, and empowerment to life. Stay tuned for our next story, and never forget, true strength is often born from life's most challenging trials.